The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, this is Jennifer Schaus, and welcome to our fourth week of government contracting webinars. Today we are lucky enough to be joined by Karen Long, who's going to be discussing teaming agreements and the essentials of them, which is a very interesting and hot topic in government contracting. A little bit about our webinars. You can find them all on our website under the webinars section. And they are all recorded. They are all complimentary. So in the event that you miss any of the ones that we've covered in the past, they have all been recorded through yesterday. You can find them below the schedule, and they are sorted by topic. For any of our events and trainings, you can find those on our website under the events section, or an easier method would be to sign up for our newsletter, which will keep you abreast of everything that we're doing. A little bit about us. We're based in downtown Washington, D.C., and provide various services for government contractors ranging from market analysis reports, proposal writing, capability statements, 8A certification, GSA schedule help, and some contract administration. As I mentioned previously, we do host events, seminars, and obviously these webinars. So thanks everybody for joining us. This slide just kind of touches on my background, but more importantly, I'd rather dig into a little bit about Karen Long and her background, and then we'll dig into teaming agreements. So Karen, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm excited to hear your presentation, and I'll give the floor to you.
Well, thanks very much, Jennifer. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate everybody joining us. So as Jennifer said, this is a little bit about me. If you have any questions after the presentation, please feel free to contact me. My email and phone number is on the slide, as you can see. So again, thanks again, Jennifer. So here's some information about Streamline. There's there's actually too much to list, but we provide cradle-to-grave contract management services for small and mid-sized government contractors. And you can visit our website at www.streamlinegovcon.com. And it also contains some blogs and resources that you can refer to as well. So essentials of teaming agreements. And this will be a relatively short and sweet presentation. I hope that you find it valuable. A lot of this information will be given from the subcontractor's perspective because they have the greater challenge in negotiating the TA. And why is it important to have a solid teaming agreement? A teaming agreement sets the framework for the relationship prior to the proposal and hopefully contract award. So it sets the basis of the relationship. And especially if your company is the sub, the best practice is to have a fully negotiated and executed TA before providing information to the prime, which includes both the technical and pricing information. And as a sub, this is where you have the most leverage. So again, I can't emphasize enough that ideally you will have the teaming agreement fully negotiated prior to even the RFP and solicitation coming out. Negotiating as much front can also reduce the amount of negotiation in the subcontract, and I'll give you a few examples. So in attachment A, oftentimes some of the things that you can negotiate up front for services are, if the sub has an employee who leaves the company, do they retain that billet on the contract, or does that go back to the prime? Another example is, how long does the sub have to fill the position? So again, these are things that can be negotiated up front. Some other examples are publicity, intellectual property, and non-solicitation. Those are often things that you see in the teaming agreement that then can be carried over to the subcontract. Another clause that I like to put in or make sure that's in the teaming agreement is that the subcontractor's pricing that is submitted to the prime may only be changed if mutually agreed upon. I'm amazed at how many primes do try to change the pricing on the subcontractor after awards. I find that that can be very important and helpful to the sub. Next slide. So what does a subcontractor bring to the table? So before negotiating any subcontractor, the best practice is to evaluate what the sub is bringing to the table. For example, are they bringing their relationship with the client? Do they know the agency inside and out? Do they bring the opportunity to the prime? Do they have some rare subject matter expertise that's difficult to find? Or do they simply fill a small business goal? And what I recommend for people or for companies is to look into SAM, and there are a lot of different searches you can do. You can search by NAICS code if you want to search by geographical area, and you can indicate if there's a small business designation that you're interested in, and it can be eye-opening to see what your competition is. So again, understanding what you bring to the table is key. Next slide, please. And this is really the most important part of the presentation. So language matters is the bottom line. And in general, subjective language favors the prime. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. So an example may be that the sub will obtain approximately 30% of the work share. What's approximately? Is it within 2 percentage points of 30%, or is it within 10 percentage points of 30%? Again, obviously there's no specific measurement there. If a no bid decision is made, the prime will notify the sub promptly. What is promptly? Is that within an hour, or is that within a week? So again, not clearly defined. And one last example on this is sub shall submit resumes to the prime in a timely manner. Well, again, what is a timely manner? Is it 3 business days? Is it 10 business days? Etc. So so how I would, when reviewing the teaming agreement as a subcontractor, what I recommend is, and what a best practice is to put in more objective language. So to say at least 30% of the work share, that's a definite, concrete, measurable amount. And even if you need to lower the percentage, by having the at least, it is definite and cannot be argued. So at least 25% of the work share. Or if a no bid decision is made, the prime will notify the sub within 1 business days. This allows the subcontractor, one, to not waste any more time and resources working on the effort, but also to potentially look for other teammates to work with. Sub shall have 15 business days to provide resources to the prime for an open billet. So that is, again, that is important. What I have found is there are sometimes some what I would call fluff that the prime adds, and there's nothing wrong with it. However, the subcontractor needs to understand that it is just fluff. So, for example, these are 3 examples of things that I've seen. If team member puts a sufficient effort into a task order proposal, team member will have additional work share. Well, again, what is significant effort? A very subjective term. Or the goal is that the sub will retain as many current employees as possible. Again, 2 things here, actually. One, a goal. There's nothing definitive about a goal. And as many employees as possible. Again, there's not a specific number. Last, if the contract grows substantially due to the sub's efforts, they will get increased work share. Well, what is growing substantially, and what is work share, and how would that be measured? So again, it's important to look for those things. And I'll give you, again, I do find that to me this is the most important part. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple of other examples of things that I see. If the subcontractor does not respond within 4 business days, Prime may remove them from the team. So what I recommend is whenever you can put in mutually agreed upon clauses, do so. So if I were reviewing this teaming agreement, I would put something in like, if the subcontractor does not respond in a mutually agreed upon time, Prime may remove them from the team. A couple of other just hints that I try to include, which sometimes can be helpful and effective, is approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. And you'll see this sometimes when it comes to press publicity and press releases. The Prime generally needs to approve any press releases, but I like to include the clause that approval shall not be unreasonably withheld. The same goes for reviewing resumes. If you can say that that approval shall not be unreasonably withheld, gives you a little bit more to go back to. And again, you want to make sure the clauses where applicable are mutual, such as non-solicitation. So next slide, please. So some points to consider are, what are the proposal responsibilities? So the subcontractor really needs to evaluate, and particularly if they're a small company, do they have the resources available so that they can deliver on what they're promising in? And this is usually found in attachment A. So do they have the necessary resources available to attend meetings, do proposal reviews, data calls, teleconferences, whatever is outlined for the proposal responsibilities in attachment A? Just make sure that you can deliver on what you commit to. And key personnel, this is actually interesting, or I have found this interesting. So there are pros and cons to a subcontractor having key personnel. The pro is that it's difficult to get the person removed from the contract. And in fact, I've seen a Prime unable to terminate a subcontract for convenience because the subcontractor had key personnel. However, of course, the con is that the key personnel is going to be difficult to replace. Generally, they need both the Prime and the contracting officer to approve the person. So if you have plans for this person to move on to another contract, then you may want to think about that. Is there exclusivity on the IDIQ task order or both? And generally what I see is there's not exclusivity on at the IDIQ level for IDIQ solicitations, but there is on task order solicitations. But again, you want to be careful in reading the verbiage and to read the verbiage carefully. And for example, sometimes the language can be hidden. For example, one in a 10 or 12 page teaming agreement, there was, in one case, there was one sentence that said, under this agreement, the parties are bound on an exclusive basis. And that was the only reference to exclusivity throughout the whole teaming agreement. Yet obviously that is binding. So it is important to make sure that you consider the points and also read it carefully. Next slide, please. So best practice is to incorporate the NDA by reference. And generally what the phrasing that is used is the NDA dated February 17, 2017, or May 5th, 2017, October 10th, 2016, is incorporated by reference as attachment 1. And then when you send the teaming agreement document, you want to also include the attachment 1, which would be the NDA. The reason to incorporate the NDA by reference is, one, so that you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not renegotiating what you've already determined. Secondly, you don't want to contradict, you want to be careful not to contradict any language that's in the NDA with new language and a TA. So again, time and effort saved if you just incorporate the negotiated NDA into the teaming agreement. And then I recommend that you have a time frame and a specific time frame as to how long the prime and the sub have to negotiate a subcontractor award. Technically, a subcontractor cannot invoice the prime until there is a subcontract in place and fully executed, unless the prime, gives approval otherwise. But again, to have control, to have the power, so forth, I recommend stating a timeline. And the best practice is 45 to 60 days. I say this because 30 days is it's difficult to get a fully negotiated subcontract done. You have potential new hires. You're setting up codes in the accounting system. You're setting up codes in the timesheet system. And you might have some kickoffs, both internal and external, and then not to mention people on vacation or sick leave. On the other end of the spectrum, 90 days, in my opinion, is not really giving the subcontract the importance that it needs. And this can hold up the subcontractors' invoices and payments. So the best practice is to use 45 to 60 days. Next slide, please. Okay, so the TA is a first step to forming a team, a winning proposal, contract awards, and a subcontract that hopefully works for all parties. And so that's what you want to think about when you are negotiating the teaming agreement, that this is the framework for your starting relation piece of work. And as fiscal year 2017 winds down, I wish everyone much success. I appreciate everybody's time, and thank you very much, Jennifer, for having me speak, and I will turn it back to you.
Karen, thanks so much for a great presentation on the essentials of teaming agreements. Thanks to everybody who dialed in today. Karen's contact information is here, both her phone number and her email address. She's presenting next week on profitability in firm fixed price contracts, if I'm not mistaken. And tomorrow we are going to be covering contract negotiations. That's Thursday. And Friday we will cover FAR flow-down clauses. The full schedule can be found on our website under the webinar section. Again, these are all recorded, all complimentary, and the recordings can be found under the schedule. They are segmented by topic. So thanks again, Karen, and if anybody has questions, please reach out to Karen directly. Thank you.